My sister announced she was moving into my house at a family lunch. She stole my father's house. She stole my room. She even stole my mother's dresser. But my father left me one thing he never told her about. And at our final family dinner, I am going to show her exactly what patience looks like. My name is Sophia, and I am going to tell you a story about a family lunch that destroyed my life. But do not feel sorry for me yet. Wait until the end, because by the time I finished with them, they wished they had never sat at that table. It was a Sunday afternoon in late August. The kind of humid, heavy day that makes the air feel like a wet blanket. I had spent the entire morning preparing the meal. I made my grandmother's famous pot roast. I peeled a mountain of potatoes. I baked a chocolate cake from scratch, the one with the ganache that takes 2 hours to perfect. I did all of this because I wanted everything to be perfect. I wanted my family to sit around the long oak table in the house where I grew up and feel happy. Feel together. The house was mine. Legally, morally, and by every drop of sweat I had poured into it. 3 years ago, when our father passed away from a sudden heart attack, he left the house to me. Not to my older sister, Vanessa. Not to my younger brother, Leo. To me, Sophia. His quiet, reliable, forgotten middle child. I remember reading the will in the lawyer's office. Vanessa's face had turned the color of sour milk. Leo just shrugged and looked at his phone. But I cried. Not because of the value of the house, but because Dad knew. He knew I would protect it. He knew I would never sell the land where we learned to ride bikes, where Mom planted her rose bushes before she got sick, where every corner held a ghost of a laugh. I worked 2 jobs to keep the house. I painted the peeling shutters myself. I replaced the water heater when it burst in the middle of a freezing January night. I paid the property taxes by skipping my own health insurance for a year. The house was not just a building to me. It was my father's handshake from the grave. It was my proof that I mattered. Vanessa, on the other hand, had flown to California the day after high school graduation and never looked back. She became a social media strategist, which as far as I could tell meant posting photos of herself at expensive brunches and getting paid for it. She lived in a sleek apartment in Los Angeles with a man named Brett who sold something vague involving crypto. She came home once a year, if that, and when she did, she complained that the guest rooms smelled like old people and that the Wi-Fi was too slow. Leo lived in the basement. That was the arrangement. After Dad died, Leo was 22 and had no job, no ambition, and a growing fondness for video games and takeout containers. I let him stay because he was my brother and because I was too tired to fight. He paid no rent. He did no chores. He just existed in the basement like a friendly ghost who occasionally left dirty dishes in the sink. So that Sunday, I was nervous. Vanessa had announced she was coming for a visit. She said she had big news. She said we should all be together. I cleaned the house from attic to foundation. I polished the silverware that hadn't been used since Mom's funeral. I even bought fresh flowers and arranged them in a crystal vase that had belonged to our great-grandmother. I wanted Vanessa to see that the house was thriving, that I was thriving, that Dad had made the right choice. They arrived at 1 o'clock sharp. Vanessa stepped out of a rented white BMW wearing white linen pants and oversized sunglasses, even though the sun was behind a cloud. Brett followed her, carrying a bottle of wine that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. He was tall and tan and had the kind of smile that looked like it had been practiced in a mirror. "Sophie," Vanessa said, using the nickname she knew I hated. She air-kissed both my cheeks like we were in a French movie. "Oh my God, this place looks exactly the same. Like exactly, down to the crooked welcome mat." "How nostalgic," I smiled. "Welcome home, Ness." She looked past me into the living room. "Right, home." Brett shook my hand with a grip that was too firm. "Sophia, Vanessa talks about you all the time. The talented one, right? The one who stayed?" I didn't know what that meant, but I said thank you anyway. Leo emerged from the basement, blinking like a mole. He had put on a clean flannel shirt, which was his version of a tuxedo. He hugged Vanessa, then Brett, then immediately asked what was for dinner. We sat down at the oak table at 2 o'clock. The pot roast was tender. The potatoes were creamy. The candles flickered in their holders. For about 15 minutes, it felt almost like a real family. Vanessa told stories about a celebrity she had met at a pool party. Brett talked about an app he was developing that would change the way people think about hydration. Leo chewed with his mouth open and scrolled through his phone under the table. I watched them. I watched the way Vanessa's eyes moved around the room, cataloging things, the new curtains I had sewn, the repaired window frame, the fresh coat of paint on the baseboards. She was not admiring. She was appraising. Like a real estate agent calculating a listing price. Then she put down her fork. "Okay, you guys," she said, clapping her hands together. "I can't wait another second. Brett and I have an announcement." Leo looked up. Brett put his hand on Vanessa's shoulder. I felt a cold thread stitch itself through my chest. "We're moving," Vanessa said. "Back here." The silence that followed was so complete that I could hear the ice melting in my glass. "What?" I said. Vanessa smiled her widest smile. "We've been talking about it for months. LA is exhausting. The smog, the traffic, the fake people, we want a slower pace. We want to be near family. And this house is so big. It's perfect for us. But I live here," I said. My voice sounded very small. "Of course you do, honey," Vanessa said. She reached across the table and patted my hand. It was the kind of pat you give a dog that is being gently moved off the couch. "And you'll keep living here, just differently. We're going to move in. Leo can stay in the basement. Brett and I will take the master bedroom. And you can have the small room upstairs, the one with the slanted ceiling. It's cute." The master bedroom was my father's room. After he died, I had turned it into a kind of sanctuary. His book still sat on the shelf. His reading glasses rested on the nightstand. I went in there sometimes when I missed him too much, and I would sit on the edge of the bed and pretend he was just in the bathroom. "You can't take the master bedroom," I said. "That's Dad's room." Vanessa's smile flickered for a fraction of a second. "Sophia, Dad is gone, it's a room, and Brett and I need a lot of closet space." Brett chuckled. "Vanessa told me you were attached, but wow. It's just drywall and floorboards, Sophia." I looked at Leo. He was staring at his plate, pushing a potato around with his fork. "Leo, say something," he shrugged. "I mean, it's a big house, and Vanessa has money. Maybe she can help with the property taxes. That leaky pipe in the basement isn't going to fix itself." My heart cracked. A tiny hairline fracture right down the middle. "The house isn't yours to just move into, Vanessa," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Dad left it to me. It's mine." Vanessa leaned back in her chair. She took a slow sip of wine. Then she placed the glass down with a soft click. "See, that's the thing, Sophia. I've been doing some research. I talked to a lawyer friend of Brett's. Dad's will was written on a piece of paper he found online. It wasn't notarized properly in this state. Technically, the house should go to all three of us equally. I could fight it. And you know I have the resources to drag this out for years. Or," she spread her hands, "we can be a family, we can share." The room tilted. I gripped the edge of the table. "You're threatening to sue me for the house," I said, "at our father's table." Vanessa's eyes hardened. The mask of sweetness dropped just for a second. Underneath was something cold and hungry. "I'm not threatening. I'm offering you a solution. You keep your room, you keep your little life, you just have to share. Or I can take the whole thing and give you a check for a third of the value. Your choice." Brett smiled again, that practiced smile. "Vanessa just wants what's fair, Sophia. You've had the house to yourself for 3 years. That was a gift. Now it's time to be a grown-up." I looked at Leo. He wouldn't meet my eyes. That was the moment I understood something terrible. They had planned this. Vanessa had flown across the country not to see me, not to remember Dad, but to take my home. And Leo, my own brother, was going to let her. Because Leo never fought for anything. He just surfed the current of whoever was loudest. I stood up. My chair scraped against the hardwood floor like a scream. "I need a minute," I said. I walked to the kitchen. I leaned over the sink and stared out the window at the backyard. The rose bushes Mom had planted were in full bloom. Red and pink and white. They looked like little explosions of color against the green grass. I had watered them that morning. I had talked to them like they were old friends. In the dining room, I could hear Vanessa laughing, a light, tinkling sound. She was already rearranging the furniture in her mind. I could have screamed. I could have thrown the pot roast at her white linen pants. I could have called a lawyer right then and there and started a war. But I didn't. Because in that moment, leaning over the sink with the water dripping from the faucet, something else happened. Something I had never felt before. The anger went quiet. And underneath it, something cold and sharp began to grow. I turned off the water. I dried my hands on a dish towel. I took a slow breath. Then I walked back to the dining room. I sat down, I picked up my fork, and I smiled. "You know what, Vanessa?" I said. "You're right, it's a big house. And I've been so lonely here. Maybe having family around is exactly what I need." Vanessa's face lit up. "Oh my God, really? Sophia, that's so mature of you." Brett raised his glass. "To family." Leo finally looked up. He gave me a small, grateful smile, as if I had just saved him from having to pick a side. I clinked my glass against theirs. "To family," I said. The chocolate cake was served. Vanessa had 2 slices. Brett complimented the ganache. Leo went back to the basement as soon as the plates were cleared. And I washed the dishes alone, as I always did, with the hot water stinging my hands and a plan beginning to take shape in my mind. You see, Vanessa made one mistake. She thought I was weak because I was kind. She thought that because I didn't scream or throw things, I would just fold. She forgot that I am my father's daughter, and my father was not a man you wanted to cross. He was a quiet man, a patient man. He fixed things, he waited. And when the time came, he acted. The next morning, I woke up at 6. Vanessa and Brett were asleep in the guest room downstairs. They hadn't even asked before taking it. They had simply carried their suitcases in and closed the door. I made coffee. I sat at the kitchen table with a notebook, and I began to write. I wrote down everything I knew about Vanessa. Every secret she had ever told me when we were girls. Every lie, every manipulation. Every time she had taken something that wasn't hers. I wrote down the story of how she had stolen our cousin's wedding fund by convincing everyone she needed it for a medical emergency that never happened. I wrote down the name of the man she had been seeing behind Brett's back during a business trip to Miami. I wrote down the social media accounts she used to fake her engagement photos. The filters, the paid followers, the hollow, spinning house of cards that was her perfect life. I didn't know what I was going to do with these notes yet, but I knew one thing for certain. Vanessa had declared war, and she had no idea who she was fighting. The first week was the hardest. Vanessa and Brett moved their things in with an efficiency that felt like an invasion. Boxes appeared in the hallway. A Peloton bike was assembled in the living room. The guest room, which had been decorated with my mother's antique furniture, was stripped bare and replaced with a velvet headboard and a mirrored dresser. My mother's dresser was moved to the garage. "Don't worry," Vanessa said when she saw me staring at it. "I'll donate it to a good cause, maybe a shelter." I said nothing. I just helped her carry the boxes. Leo continued to live in the basement. He seemed to enjoy the chaos. More people meant more chances to avoid responsibility. He started eating breakfast with Brett, who talked about cryptocurrency and the importance of hustle culture. Leo started wearing a baseball cap backwards and using words like synergy. I became invisible. That was the key. I stopped arguing. I stopped defending. I started waking up earlier and earlier, making coffee and toast for everyone, cleaning the kitchen, vacuuming the rugs. I smiled. I nodded. I said, "Of course, and no problem, and whatever you think is best." Vanessa loved it. She started treating me like a housekeeper. She would leave lists on the refrigerator. "Sophia, can you pick up my dry cleaning?" "Sophia, Brett needs his shirt starched." "Sophia, we're having friends over Saturday, please make your pot roast." I made the pot roast. I picked up the dry cleaning. I starched the shirts. And every night, after everyone went to sleep, I sat in my small room with the slanted ceiling and I wrote. I opened a private email account. I started contacting people from Vanessa's past. Her old college roommate who she had abandoned after stealing a diamond necklace. Her former business partner who she had left with a pile of debt. The cousin whose wedding fund she had stolen. I didn't threaten. I didn't ask for anything. I just asked questions, I listened, and I saved every reply. The second week, I found the key. It was a Tuesday. Vanessa had gone to the city for a meeting that she wouldn't talk about. Brett was at a golf course with a client. Leo was in the basement, deep in a video game, headphones on, lost to the world. I was cleaning the master bedroom, which Vanessa had already started calling our room. She had moved my father's books to a box in the attic. His reading glasses were in the trash. I fished them out and put them in my pocket. While I was dusting the closet shelf, my hand brushed against something taped to the underside. A small envelope, yellowed with age. I pulled it down carefully and opened it. Inside was a key. Old brass heavy, with a piece of masking tape wrapped around the top. Written on the tape in my father's shaky handwriting were 3 words. For Sophia, only. My hands trembled. I looked around the room to make sure I was alone. Then I slid the key into my pocket next to the reading glasses. I searched the rest of the closet. The shelf, the shoe boxes, the winter coats, nothing else. But the key had to go to something. I thought about the house, every corner, every crawl space. My father was a man who hid things, not because he was secretive, but because he believed in surprises. He used to hide birthday presents in the most ridiculous places. Inside the furnace duct, under the floorboards of the shed. Once, he hid a bicycle in the chimney, and we didn't find it until Christmas morning when smoke filled the living room. That night, I waited until 3 in the morning. The house was silent. Vanessa and Brett were asleep. Leo's basement door was closed, the faint blue glow of his TV flickering under the crack. I slipped out of my room and walked downstairs in my bare feet. I started in the basement. Leo's mess was everywhere. Pizza boxes, energy drink cans, tangled cords. I stepped over a pile of laundry and went to the back wall, where my father used to keep his workbench. The bench was still there, covered in dust and old tools. I ran my hands along the edges, looking for a lock. Nothing. The attic was next. The pull-down ladder creaked as I lowered it. I climbed up into the dark, dusty space, using my phone as a flashlight. Boxes of Christmas decorations, old photo albums, my mother's wedding dress in a preservation box. I searched for an hour. No lock, no chest, no door. The shed in the backyard. I put on my coat and walked outside. The grass was wet with dew. The shed was small, leaning to one side, filled with gardening tools and rusted lawnmower parts. I searched every shelf, every bucket. Nothing. I was about to give up when I remembered the fireplace. The living room fireplace was original to the house. A massive stone thing that hadn't been used in years. My father had bricked it up after a chimney fire when I was 12. He said it was too dangerous. But I remembered him spending a whole weekend working on it, mixing mortar, laying bricks. He had been so focused, so meticulous. I went back inside. I knelt in front of the fireplace. The bricks were old and uneven. I ran my fingers over the mortar, looking for a seam, a crack, anything. And then I found it. One brick near the bottom was slightly loose. I pushed it. It slid inward. I reached my hand into the dark space behind the brick. My fingers touched something cold and metal, a small box. I pulled it out. It was a fire safe. The kind you buy at a hardware store. Black, scorched on one side, about the size of a shoebox, and it had a keyhole. I inserted the key. It turned with a solid click. Inside the safe were 3 things: a stack of letters tied with a ribbon, a small leather journal, and a USB drive. I took the box back to my room. I locked the door. I sat on my bed with the slanted ceiling pressing down on me, and I began to read. The letters were from my father. He had written them to me. One for each year from the year I was born until the year he died. I read the first one, dated 1995, the year I came home from the hospital. "My little Sophia," it said, "you have the quietest eyes. Like you already know everything. Never let anyone tell you that quiet means weak. The strongest people I know are the ones who listen." I cried for a few minutes, then I wiped my face and opened the journal. The journal was not about me. It was about Vanessa. My father had kept a record. Page after page, in his neat, careful handwriting, he had documented things. The time Vanessa stole money from his wallet and blamed the housekeeper. The time she forged his signature on a permission slip to get out of a test. The time she told a terrible lie about a teacher that almost got the teacher fired. And then, as she got older, bigger things. The cousin's wedding fund. The business partner. There was even a note about a man in Miami, dated 2 years ago. "Vanessa is seeing someone named Marco," my father wrote. "She is still engaged to Brett. I have not said anything because she is my daughter. But I am watching." The final entry was dated 3 days before his heart attack. "I am changing the will," he wrote. "The house goes to Sophia. She will protect it, but I am leaving Vanessa something else. Something she will not expect. The USB drive contains everything, all the proof. If she ever tries to hurt her siblings, they will have the weapon they need. I hope they never have to use it." I sat there for a long time. The sun began to rise, painting the slanted ceiling orange and pink. I had the weapon. My father had given it to me from beyond the grave. He had known Vanessa would try something. He had known I would need help. But I still didn't know what to do. I could expose her. I could send the files to Brett, to her employer, to the world. I could destroy her. But that would also destroy my family. And despite everything, I wasn't sure I wanted that. So I waited. The third week, Vanessa made her final move. It was a Saturday, another family lunch. This time, Vanessa did the cooking. She made a salad, just a salad. Store-bought dressing, bagged lettuce, some sad-looking tomatoes. She served it on my mother's china. After we ate, she stood up and made another announcement. "I've been talking to a realtor," she said. "This house is worth a lot more than I thought. We're sitting on a gold mine. Brett and I have decided to sell." The room went cold. "Sell," I said. Vanessa nodded. "It makes the most sense. We'll split the proceeds 3 ways. Sophia, you can get a nice apartment somewhere. Leo, you can use your share to, I don't know, get a life. And Brett and I are going to use our share as a down payment on a place in the Hamptons. We've always wanted a summer home." Leo put down his fork. "Wait, sell the house? Where will I live?" Vanessa shrugged. "Not my problem, Leo. You're 30 years old. Time to grow up." Leo looked at me. For the first time, I saw something like fear in his eyes. He had been coasting for so long. The house was his safety net. Without it, he was just a man in a basement with no plan. I looked at Vanessa. "You can't sell the house. It's not yours to sell. Dad left it to me." Vanessa's smile vanished. "I told you, Sophia, the will is weak. I have a lawyer ready to file on Monday. You can either agree to the sale and take your third, or I will take you to court and you will end up with nothing but legal fees. Your choice." Brett stood behind her, arms crossed. He wasn't smiling anymore. I looked at Leo. He looked away. I looked at the table, at my mother's china, at the salad that Vanessa had made with 0 effort, at the life I had built with my own 2 hands, crumbling around me. And then I did something I had never done before. I laughed. It was not a happy laugh. It was the laugh of someone who has finally seen the whole board, the pieces, the moves, the endgame. "Okay, Vanessa," I said. "You want to sell? Let's sell. But I have one condition, one last family dinner. Here, Sunday night, just the 4 of us. We'll invite Dad's old lawyer, Mr. Henderson. We'll sign the papers together. We'll do it right." Vanessa's eyes narrowed. She was suspicious. But she was also greedy, and greedy people always take the bait. "Fine," she said. "Sunday night, but no tricks, Sophia. I'm done playing nice." I smiled. "No tricks, I promise." That night, I went to the basement. Leo was sitting on his couch, staring at a paused video game. He looked up when I came in. His face was pale. "Soph, I'm sorry," he said. "I should have said something. I should have backed you up." I sat down next to him. "It's okay, Leo. You're going to help me now." "Help you how?" I told him everything. The key, the safe, the journal, the USB drive. Leo's eyes got wider and wider. By the time I finished, he was shaking his head. "You're going to destroy her," he said. "No," I said. "She destroyed herself. I'm just going to show everyone the footage." Leo was quiet for a long time, then he nodded. "What do you need me to do?" I needed him to do one thing. On Sunday night, during dinner, I needed him to ask one question. A simple question that would open the door. Sunday came faster than I expected. I spent the whole day preparing. Not food this time, evidence. I organized the USB drive files. Bank statements, emails, photographs, recordings. My father had been thorough. There was a recording of Vanessa admitting to stealing the wedding fund. There were screenshots of her messages with Marco from Miami. There was a document showing that she had created fake social media accounts to leave negative reviews on Brett's app, so he would feel insecure and depend on her more. But the final piece was something I found in the letters. My father had written about it in the last letter, the one dated the week he died. "Vanessa has been forging signatures," he wrote. "She took out a loan in your mother's name after your mother was already too sick to know what was happening. The loan is for $50,000. She never paid it back. The bank is still looking for the money. If they trace it to her, she could go to prison." That was the key, not embarrassment, not shame. Prison. I printed everything. I made 3 copies. One for Mr. Henderson, the lawyer, one for Brett, and one for the police officer I had quietly invited to wait in the kitchen. At 6 o'clock, the doorbell rang. Vanessa and Brett arrived first. Vanessa was wearing a black dress, serious and businesslike. Brett had a briefcase. They sat at the table without saying hello. Mr. Henderson arrived at 6:15, gray-haired and tired-looking. He had been my father's lawyer for 30 years. He looked at me with sad eyes, like he already knew what was coming. Leo came up from the basement. He was wearing a clean shirt again. He sat across from me. We began to eat. Vanessa had ordered catering this time, expensive food from a French restaurant, salmon with dill sauce, asparagus, a cold cucumber soup. It was the best meal we had ever had in that house, and it tasted like poison. Halfway through the meal, Leo cleared his throat. He looked at Vanessa. He asked the question I had told him to ask. "Hey, Vanessa," he said. "Remember that loan you took out in Mom's name? The one for $50,000? Whatever happened with that?" Vanessa froze. Her fork stopped halfway to her mouth. Brett looked at her. Mr. Henderson looked up from his plate. "I don't know what you're talking about," Vanessa said, but her voice was too high, too fast. "Mom was sick," Leo said, playing his part perfectly. "She couldn't sign anything, but the bank had her signature." "How did that happen, Vanessa?" Vanessa put down her fork. "Leo, this is not the time." "It's exactly the time," I said. Every head turned to me. I reached under the table and pulled out a manila envelope. Thick, heavy. I placed it on the table in front of me. "I know about the wedding fund, Vanessa. I know about the business partner. I know about Marco from Miami. I know about the fake reviews on Brett's app. And I know about the loan. The $50,000 you stole from our dying mother." Brett's face went white. "What? Vanessa, what is she talking about?" Vanessa's composure cracked. "She's lying, she's jealous. She's always been jealous because I'm successful, and she's just a maid who lives in her dead father's house." I opened the envelope. I pulled out the first page, the bank statement. "This is the loan application. Mom's signature is at the bottom, but Mom was in a coma when this was signed. I have the hospital records to prove it." I pulled out the second page. "This is a receipt from a hotel in Miami. Dated the same weekend you told Brett you were visiting your sick aunt. You were with Marco." Brett stood up. His chair fell backward. "Vanessa, tell me this isn't true." Vanessa stood up too. Her face was red. "Brett, sit down. She's trying to manipulate you." I pulled out the third page. "And this is a recording. Dad made it. It's you, Vanessa, laughing with your friend about how you were going to convince Brett to propose by faking a pregnancy scare." The room went silent. Even the refrigerator seemed to stop humming. Brett looked at Vanessa like he had never seen her before. "You faked a pregnancy scare to get me to propose?" Vanessa opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Then I said the words that changed everything. "The police are in the kitchen, Vanessa. Officer Martinez has been listening to everything. Forgery is a felony. Stealing from a bank using a dead woman's signature is fraud. You're looking at 5 to 10 years minimum." Vanessa's legs gave out. She sat down hard. Her black dress pooled around her like spilled wine. "You wouldn't, I'm your sister." I stood up. I walked around the table until I was standing right behind her. I put my hands on her shoulders. She flinched. "You're right," I said quietly. "You are my sister, and I loved you. I would have shared this house with you if you had asked. I would have given you a room. I would have made you dinner every Sunday. All you had to do was be my family. But you didn't want a family. You wanted a victory. You wanted to take something from me just to prove that you could. And now you're going to lose everything." The kitchen door opened. Officer Martinez walked in. She was a calm, sturdy woman with kind eyes and handcuffs on her belt. "Vanessa Marie Collins," she said, "you are under arrest for forgery, identity theft, and bank fraud." Vanessa started to cry. Real tears, ugly tears, the kind that smear mascara and ruin linen pants. "Sophia, please, please don't do this. I'll leave. I'll go back to LA. I'll never come back. Just call her off." I looked at Brett. He was staring at Vanessa like she was a stranger. A stranger he had shared a bed with. A stranger he had planned a future with. I looked at Leo. He was crying too, silent tears running down his face. I looked at Mr. Henderson. He gave me a small, slow nod, the nod of a man who had seen justice done. Then I looked at Officer Martinez. "I'm not pressing charges," I said. Vanessa's head snapped up. Hope flooded her face. But I wasn't finished. "The bank is pressing charges," I said. The victim of the fraud was our mother, but the bank is the one who lost the money. They already have the evidence. I sent it to them 3 days ago. They'll be filing their own case. And they won't drop it for anything." Vanessa's hope turned to ash. Officer Martinez helped her to her feet. She handcuffed her. The metal clicked twice, final and cold. "No," Vanessa whispered. "No, no, no." As they walked her toward the door, she looked back at me. Her eyes were wild. "You planned this, from the beginning, the lunch, the dinner, everything, you played me." I nodded. Dad taught me to be patient. He taught me to wait. He said the strongest people are the ones who listen. I listened to you, Vanessa, for 3 years, for our whole lives, and then I acted. The door closed behind her. The house was quiet. Brett stood there for a moment, then he picked up his briefcase. He walked to the stairs, then stopped. He turned to me. "I'm sorry," he said. "I didn't know about any of it." "I know," I said. "That's the saddest part." He walked upstairs. A few minutes later, I heard him rolling his suitcase out the front door. A car started, the gravel crunched, then silence. Leo came and stood next to me. We watched the empty driveway. "What happens now?" he asked. I thought about it. The house was mine again. Really mine. No threats, no invasions, no sister scheming in the guest room, but it felt different now. Lighter, like a fever had broken. "Now we clean up," I said. "We move Mom's dresser back inside. We take down that ugly velvet headboard, and Leo." "Yeah." "You have 3 months to find a job and start paying rent, or you can leave. Your choice." He looked at me for a long time, then he smiled, a real smile, not the lazy shrug I was used to. "Okay," he said. "Okay, Sophia, I'll try." That was 6 months ago. Vanessa's trial is next month. The bank's case is strong. Her lawyer is talking about a plea deal. She will probably serve 2 years, maybe 3. I haven't visited her. I haven't written. I don't know if I will. Leo got a job at a hardware store. He's not great at it, but he's trying. He pays me $300 a month and keeps the basement mostly clean. Last week, he asked if he could paint the walls. I said yes. I still live in the house. I sleep in the master bedroom now. My father's books are back on the shelf. His reading glasses are on the nightstand. Sometimes, when I can't sleep, I take out the letters he wrote me. I read them one by one. And I feel him there, in the walls, in the floors, in the rose bushes outside my window. The house is mine. It was always mine, not because of a piece of paper or a key or a safe full of secrets, but because I loved it. I protected it. And in the end, I was willing to burn my own